At 1:00 a.m. in Peachtree Corners, Georgia, the night was quiet until it was. A camera-wrapped Tesla Cybertruck tore down a 45 mph road at nearly 70, engine humming, headlights slicing through the darkness. Then came the flashing blue lights in the rearview mirror, and behind the wheel, King Harris, dressed head to toe in a Pikachu onesie again. At first, it felt like another bizarre headline waiting to trend, another late-night traffic stop, another viral moment. But this time, it didn't end with a warning or a ticket. It ended in handcuffs. It ended with felony charges. And it ended with his father, T.I., standing under those flashing lights, asking officers one question that carried more weight than anything else. Is there absolutely no way to resolve this? There was. Bodycam footage shows T.I. arriving at the scene, calm but visibly tense, trying to piece together what had just happened. This wasn't just any father. It was a man who had lived through the system himself, who had spoken publicly about mistakes, consequences, and second chances. A man who in many ways had already seen this moment coming. And still, he couldn't stop it. Police reports paint a situation that escalated quickly. Officers say King refused multiple commands to step out of the vehicle. They say a firearm was visible on the dashboard. An open THC container reportedly sat in the center console. What started as a speeding violation began shifting into something far more serious. Then came the moment that changed everything. During booking, authorities say they discovered an oxycodone pill, a single pill. But in Georgia, without a valid prescription, that's enough to turn a bad night into a felony case. Just like that, the narrative flipped. This wasn't reckless driving anymore. This wasn't attitude or defiance. This was possession of a Schedule II controlled substance. Add an obstruction of law enforcement, excessive speeding, and additional violations, and suddenly one traffic stop became a stack of charges that couldn't be ignored. One night, one stop, 4 charges, a completely different future hanging in the balance. But what makes this situation hit harder isn't just what happened that night, it's what happened after. Because less than 48 hours later, reports surfaced that King had been taken into custody again. And behind the scenes, the tone shifted completely. No cameras, no performances, just a family dealing with something painfully familiar. Sources say T.I. didn't react publicly, but privately he broke down, not as an artist, not as a public figure, but as a father watching history repeat itself in real time. And that's what makes this moment different, heavier, louder, more emotional. Because this didn't come out of nowhere. This wasn't random. For years, King Harris has been walking a line between privilege and pressure, legacy and rebellion. Growing up with wealth, connections, and a last name that opens doors in every room sounds like an advantage, and it is. But it also comes with something else, constant scrutiny. Every mistake becomes content. Every outburst becomes a headline. Every bad decision gets replayed, dissected, and judged by millions. Back in 2022, a heated argument at a restaurant exploded online. What should have been a forgettable moment turned into a viral spectacle, shouting, chaos, cameras rolling. That was the first time many people said it out loud. Something wasn't right. Something was building. Then came more incidents, traffic stops, legal trouble, allegations of reckless behavior, a missed court date leading to a warrant, each moment stacking on top of the last, forming a pattern that became harder and harder to ignore. But instead of stepping back, King leaned in. He posted his mugshot like it was a badge of honor. He reframed setbacks as victories. Criticism didn't slow him down, it fueled him. To some, it looked like confidence. To others, it looked like someone testing how far they could go before consequences finally caught up. Then for a moment, everything seemed like it might change. He became a father. When his son was born, the tone shifted. His posts became more reflective. He talked about legacy, responsibility, growth. He released music dedicated to his child. For a brief moment, people believed this was the turning point, the moment where everything slows down, where priorities realign, where the chaos fades into something more stable. But fast forward to April 12, 2026, and here we are again. Another late night, another traffic stop, another escalation. Except this time the stakes are higher than they've ever been. Officers say they had to push speeds near 80 mph just to catch up. Once the vehicle stopped, the situation shifted almost immediately from routine to serious. Commands were given, questions were asked, tension built, and every second that passed made it harder to walk things back. By the time King stepped out of the vehicle, the damage was already done. Obstructee. On charges were already in motion. And once that pill was discovered during booking, the situation crossed into felony territory, something that doesn't just disappear with time or money or influence. And then came the image that stuck with everyone. T.I. standing on the side of the road, flashing lights reflecting off the pavement, his son sitting in the back of a police car, still wearing a Pikachu costume. In that moment, none of the fame mattered. None of the connections mattered. None of the influence mattered. It was just a father and a son, separated by a door that couldn't be opened with words. King was booked around 2:30 a.m. and released hours later after posting bond. For most people in that situation, the next move would be silence. Lay low. Let attorneys handle everything. Stay out of the spotlight. But King didn't do that. Instead, he turned it into content. Pikachu is free, he posted, jokingly comparing the situation to a cartoon storyline. Days later, he appeared in Japan, riding through the streets in a go-kart, blasting his own music like nothing had happened. And that's where the confusion set in. Was this confidence, denial, immaturity, or was it something deeper, someone using humor to mask the weight of what's actually happening? Because while the internet debated, the family stayed quiet. No immediate statements, no public defense, no carefully crafted explanations, just silence. Until that silence broke, not from his father but from his brother. Damani stepped in with something different. No jokes, no filters, just accountability. He reminded King of their agreement: stay out of trouble if you want to move forward, if you want to tour, if you want to build something real. It wasn't public humiliation. It was a warning, a line drawn in real time. And now the question isn't just what happens next legally. That will play out in courtrooms, through lawyers, through time. The real question is bigger than that. Is this the moment everything finally changes? Or is this the moment where the cycle locks in for good? There was no sugarcoating it this time. No spin. No clever caption to soften the blow. Just one line that cut straight through everything. You took a mugshot. And somehow that hit harder than any headline ever could. Because this time it wasn't the system speaking. It wasn't the internet judging. It wasn't strangers in comment sections breaking things down frame by frame. It was family. And when the message comes from inside the circle, it lands differently. It stays longer. For years, the spotlight has been locked on the tension between father and son. The public watched every exchange, every disagreement, every subtle moment that hinted at something deeper. But now, that dynamic has shifted. This time, it was the father stepping in publicly. It was the brother, and that changed everything. Because this arrest doesn't feel like the others, it feels heavier. This isn't just about another traffic stop. This isn't just about another viral clip people will forget in a week. This is about a pattern, one that keeps repeating itself, getting louder each time. 2 arrests in 2 years. 2 moments where flashing lights turned into something bigger. 2 nights that started ordinary and ended with charges stacking up. And now the conversation has changed. It's no longer just about what happened that night. It's about what happens next. Because felony drug charges don't disappear with memes. They don't fade with jokes or go viral and then vanish. They follow you into courtrooms. They shape decisions. They carry consequences that go far beyond embarrassment. The road ahead isn't short. It's unpredictable. And that image, T.I. standing under flashing lights, asking if there was any other way, still lingers like a question with no answer. Because this story isn't really about a costume or a late-night drive. It's about whether the lessons are finally going to land, or whether the cycle keeps going. And the most uncomfortable question of all still hangs in the air. Is this the breaking point, or just another chapter? Because the real conflict didn't start with the speeding. It didn't even start with the gun on the dashboard. It started with one sentence. "You want me to get out my car for what?" That moment shifted the energy instantly. Officers responded by citing legal precedent, the authority to order a driver out of a vehicle during a lawful stop. It's standard procedure. It's been upheld at the highest levels. But King wasn't convinced. He said he didn't feel safe. He stayed seated. And with a firearm visible within reach, the tension escalated immediately. Now picture it clearly. 1:00 a.m., a dark Georgia road. Flashing lights bouncing off a camera-wrapped Cybertruck. A loaded handgun sitting in plain sight. A 21-year-old in a Pikachu onesie refusing repeated commands. This wasn't a routine stop anymore. This was a situation balancing on the edge of escalation. Officers gave multiple warnings. GS. The tone sharpened, the pressure built, and instead of stepping out, King picked up his phone and called his lawyer from the driver's seat. That detail says everything about the mindset in that moment. This wasn't panic. This was resistance. Eventually, after that call, he stepped out. But by then, it was already too late. Obstruction had been triggered. And once that charge enters the situation, everything changes. The direction is set. The outcome becomes harder to avoid. Because at that point, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter who your father is. It doesn't matter how much influence or success surrounds your name. You're going to jail. And it didn't end there. Even after the handcuffs clicked, the tension didn't fade. Bodycam footage reportedly shows King continuing to argue, still pushing back, still questioning. At one point, he asked an officer, "Did it make you feel tough?" The response came back cold and flat. "It gave me some paperwork." That wasn't just sarcasm. That was friction. And friction at 1:30 in the morning on the side of a dark road almost never works in your favor. Even inside the patrol car, the conversation didn't stop. Questions, accusations, frustration spilling out in real time, and then in the distance, headlights appeared. A black SUV pulled up, and out stepped T.I. Not a superstar, not a public figure, just a father walking into flashing lights trying to understand how things got here. He approached calmly, no yelling, no scene, just urgency. And then he asked the question that's now echoing everywhere. Is there absolutely no way to resolve this? That wasn't arrogance. It wasn't influence trying to override the situation. It was desperation. Bodycam footage shows him listening, processing, trying to find any angle, any option that didn't end with his son being taken away. But the officers were clear. The refusal to exit the vehicle had already locked in the obstruction charge. The visible firearm raised the stakes. The THC container added another layer. Procedure had to continue. And in that moment, something deeper settled in. Because T.I. has lived this before. He knows the system. He knows how quickly a situation can spiral. But this time, he wasn't the one in handcuffs. He was watching his son walk into the same storm. And then came the twist that changed everything. During booking at Gwinnett County Jail, authorities say a pill, identified as oxycodone, a Schedule II controlled substance, was found. One pill. That's all it took to shift the entire case. Because now this wasn't just speeding, not just a seatbelt violation, not just obstruction. This became felony drug possession. And in Georgia, that's serious. Without a valid prescription, the consequences are real, and they don't disappear quietly. That single detail turned an already chaotic night into something potentially life-altering. Now step back and look at the full picture. A Pikachu costume, a Tesla Cybertruck, a firearm on the dashboard, refusal to comply, a felony drug charge. The internet didn't know how to react. Laugh, worry, judge, ignore. And King made his choice. He laughed. Hours after posting Bond, he went online. Pikachu free, Team Rocket, turning the moment into a joke, framing it like a cartoon storyline, turning a mugshot into content. And instantly, the narrative split in two. Some saw confidence, someone refusing to break under pressure. Others saw denial, someone not fully grasping the weight of what just happened. But then came the second twist, the one that made this deeper than just legal trouble. DETAINED stepped in. Not with a press statement, not with damage control, with accountability. In a raw, unfiltered moment shared publicly, he confronted King directly, reminded him of their agreement. Stay out of trouble if you want to move forward, if you want to tour, if you want to build something real. King tried to brush it off. Was that trouble, though? DETAINED didn't hesitate. You took a mugshot. And just like that, everything shifted. Because for years, people waited to see T.I. publicly check his son. But this time, it wasn't the father. It was the brother. And that says more than any statement ever could. Maybe the conversations behind closed doors have already happened, over and over again. Maybe the warnings have already been given. Maybe this time, the message had to come from someone else. DETAINED even described getting that 3:00 a.m. phone call, the kind that instantly raises your heart rate. He checked to make sure no one had died and then went back to sleep. Not because he didn't care, but because he's seen this pattern before. That's not indifference. That's exhaustion. And the internet picked up on it immediately. People praised him for maturity, for stepping up, for saying what needed to be said. Others questioned where T.I. was in that moment. But the truth is, this didn't start yesterday. Years ago, T.I. said it plainly. If this keeps up, it leads to prison. That quote is resurfacing now, and it doesn't feel like a warning anymore. It feels like something getting closer to reality. Which brings us to the real conflict underneath everything. Is this recklessness, or is it something deeper? Is it ego, or is it pressure? Because growing up in the shadow of a rap icon means constantly trying to define yourself, constantly proving you're more than just a last name. And sometimes, that need to prove something turns into defiance. Add in recent tension, public feuds, stepping in to defend family, and suddenly you're balancing loyalty, identity, and expectation all at once. One moment you're the protective son, the next you're facing a felony charge. That kind of whiplash changes things. And maybe the hardest truth to face is this. The more he tries to prove he's not sheltered, the closer he gets to proving something else entirely. Now court dates are coming, decisions are coming, and whatever happens next won't just shape headlines, it'll shape the direction of everything that follows. Felony charges don't come with filters. They don't care about captions, jokes, or how viral a moment becomes. They carry weight, real weight, probation, heavy fines, and if things are mishandled, the possibility of incarceration. This isn't social media drama anymore. This is real life pressing in, fast and unforgiving. And that's the twist hiding beneath all the memes, beneath the Pikachu costume, beneath the laughter. This moment could define everything. Because if he treats it like another badge of honor, the system won't. But if this is the wake-up call, if this is the moment that finally cuts through, then it could become the turning point people thought fatherhood would be. Right now, everything is hanging in the balance. A father who tried to step in, a brother who stepped up publicly, a young man laughing through a felony charge, and a pattern that's getting harder to ignore with every passing headline. This isn't just a conflict between King and law enforcement anymore. It's a conflict between who he is now and who he's going to become. Because the real question isn't whether he'll trend again, it's whether he'll change. And if the arrest itself felt chaotic, what happened next made it explosive. Because within 48 hours of bonding out, reports started circulating that King had another run-in with authorities. Not just whispers buried in comment sections, but multiple outlets pushing the same claim. He may have been taken into custody again. Now, to be clear, official confirmation hasn't been fully detailed publicly, but the possibility alone sent shockwaves across social media. Because if true, this wasn't just a mistake anymore. This was something else entirely. This was momentum in the wrong direction. And behind the scenes, the tone reportedly shifted. This time, there was no calm negotiation, no composed questions under flashing lights. Sources claim his father didn't stay steady this time. He broke down, not publicly, not for an audience, but emotionally, because there's a difference between watching your child get arrested once and watching it happen again before the dust even settles. That's when reality hits differently, harder, deeper. And suddenly, the situation wasn't just legal, it became personal in a way that couldn't be ignored. Reports suggest tension inside the family reached a boiling point. Conversations weren't just difficult, they were urgent. This wasn't disappointment anymore. This was fear. Fear that the pattern wasn't slowing down. Fear that chances were running out. Fear that a felony charge, especially one tied to a Schedule II substance, could reshape everything moving forward. Meanwhile, the internet did what it always does. It built a timeline. 2022, viral confrontation. 2024, arrest tied to a warrant. 2026, Cybertruck firearm THC oxycodone. Now, possible second custody incident. To critics, the pattern looked undeniable. He doesn't learn. He's addicted to chaos. He wants to be seen a certain way. The commentary was ruthless. But not everyone agreed. Supporters pushed back just as strongly. He's 21. He's growing up under a microscope most people could never handle. Every mistake magnified. Every decision judged instantly. You can't reduce someone's entire identity to their worst moments. And then that one clip started circulating again. T.I. standing on the roadside asking, "Is there absolutely no way to resolve this?" That line became bigger than the moment itself. It wasn't just about the situation, it became symbolic. A father realizing in real time that influence has limits, that no matter how much success, experience, or power you have, there are moments you can't control. For years, people accused him of shielding his son, protecting him from consequences. But that footage told a different story. He showed up, and it didn't matter. He couldn't stop what was already in motion. And if the reports of a second custody incident are accurate, then even bonding out wasn't enough to slow things down. That's where the story gets uncomfortable, because some insiders claim the emotional reaction wasn't about embarrassment, it was about recognition. T.I. has spoken before about trying to guide his son, about feeling like sometimes those lessons don't fully land. Now imagine facing the possibility that they still haven't. That's not anger, that's heartbreak. At the same time, King's public tone hasn't shifted. Videos from Japan, music playing, captions that feel like celebration instead of caution. To some, that looks like strength, someone refusing to fold under pressure. To others, it feels like denial, someone not fully processing what's at stake. And that contrast is what makes everything louder. Because while one side is confronting the seriousness of felony charges, the other is turning it into content. Then came the moment nobody expected to hit as hard as it did. Damani's words. "You took a mugshot." Simple, direct, unavoidable. That line spread faster than the arrest itself. It cut through excuses, through narratives, through debate. Suddenly, this wasn't just about police or procedure. It was about responsibility. Was the officer out of line, like King suggested? Or did the refusal to comply trigger everything that followed? Legal analysts quickly weighed in, explaining that once an officer lawfully orders you out of a vehicle, refusal almost guarantees escalation. That's not personal, that's procedure. But procedure doesn't erase emotion. And that's where this story becomes something deeper than a legal case, because the reality is, some patterns are incredibly hard to break. You can offer guidance, you can provide opportunities, you can warn, advise, even predict outcomes, but you can't live someone else's consequences. And if that second custody report proves true, then this moment shifts from serious to critical, because courts don't ignore repetition, judges notice patterns. Felony drug possession alone carries major implications. Add obstruction, add excessive speeding, add prior incidents. Now it's not just about one night, it's about a trajectory. And that's where everything changes. Because while the internet debates and the headlines keep rolling, the stakes are quietly becoming permanent. This isn't distract drama. This isn't entertainment. This is real life unfolding in real time. And maybe the most shocking part of all, through everything, King hasn't publicly shown fear. That could mean strength, or it could mean the weight hasn't fully hit yet. And that uncertainty is what leaves this story hanging in the air. Because if this situation escalates further, if more legal complications stack on top, this could be the moment that defines his trajectory, not just as an artist, not just as a public figure, but as a man. Because eventually the headlines stop being funny, the memes stop being harmless. Pikachu free doesn't erase felony paperwork. And right now, the line between redemption and repetition is razor thin. One decision could shift everything. One mistake could lock the narrative in place permanently. And maybe the most haunting part of all, this road was already seen coming. The only question left now is the one that matters most. Does he step off this path while he still can? Or is this just the beginning of something far more serious? By the fourth day, this had outgrown the label of a celebrity arrest. It wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a full-scale debate about legacy, accountability, and cycles that refused to break. Every major entertainment outlet had picked it up. Commentary channels were dissecting every frame. Timelines were flooded with one name on repeat: King Harris. But what made this moment hit differently wasn't just the felony charge. It was the footage, the body cam clips, the brother stepping in with real accountability, and the image that refused to fade, T.I. standing on the roadside, asking if there was any way out. The reaction split instantly. On one side were the critics, sharp and unforgiving. They didn't hesitate. They called it predictable, said he refuses to learn, said he treats consequences like a game, said fame won't protect him forever. They replayed the timeline like evidence: 2022, the viral confrontation; 2024, the arrest tied to a warrant; 2026, the Cybertruck, the firearm, the THC, the pill. To them, this wasn't shocking. It was inevitable. Some even dug up old interviews where T.I. admitted he saw parts of himself in his son, arguing that the same energy he once described is now playing out in real time. But the other side wasn't laughing. Supporters pushed back hard, arguing that the public rushes to judgment too quickly. He's 21, living under a spotlight most people couldn't survive. Every mistake amplified. Every decision turned into national conversation. They asked a simple question: how many people would handle that kind of pressure perfectly? And just like that, the situation grew into something bigger than one arrest. It became a cultural argument: privilege versus pressure, accountability versus growth, influence versus identity. Then came the silence. No loud celebrity defenses. No big-name artists stepping in publicly. Just quiet observation. Because when felony drug charges enter the conversation, people move carefully. Some industry figures posted vague messages about young artists needing guidance. No names, but the timing said enough. Radio hosts debated it live, one arguing that defiance invites escalation, another countering that young men often double down when they feel misunderstood. Meanwhile, one moment kept echoing louder than everything else. "You took a mugshot." That line, delivered by his brother Damani, spread faster than the arrest itself. It cut through the noise. Fans praised him for maturity, calling him the voice of reason. Some even began to wonder if the older brother might become the grounding force moving forward. And just like that, the narrative shifted again. This wasn't about police versus celebrity anymore. It was about family. For years, the focus had been on T.I. as the father, the figure expected to guide and correct. But this time, the internet saw something different, a brother stepping up, publicly holding the line, and that carried weight. At the same time, another uncomfortable detail surfaced. King suggested the officer's attitude played a role, implying it was a bad day, a bad interaction. But the body cam footage told a more structured story. Officers cited legal precedent, explaining their authority to order him out of the vehicle. And that detail changed how many people saw the situation. Because once a lawful command is given, refusal almost guarantees escalation. That nuance divided the audience even more. Was he standing his ground? Or was he escalating a situation that didn't need to go that far? Legal analysts broke it down online, referencing Supreme Court rulings that support officers' authority during traffic stops. To them, it wasn't personal, it was procedural. But for others, tone and treatment still mattered just as much as the law itself. And while the debate raged, one thing stood out above everything else: T.I.'s silence. No live streams, no detailed statements, no public breakdowns, just quiet. And that silence feels intentional. Speaking too soon could complicate legal proceedings, but staying quiet leaves space for speculation, and speculation has been moving fast. Some believe he's handling everything behind the scenes, working with attorneys, trying to stabilize the situation before it spirals further. Others believe he's reached a point of emotional exhaustion, where words don't carry the same weight anymore. Because there are only so many times you can warn someone about a road, and then watch them take it anyway. Even those who have clashed with T.I. in the past have stayed quiet, and that silence says something. Just weeks ago, King was loud, stepping into public feuds, defending his family, making his presence known. But this isn't that. This isn't diss tracks or online back and forth. This is courtrooms, and courtrooms don't respond to captions. For longtime fans, the reaction has shifted from entertainment to concern, because patterns matter, and repeated arrests, especially those involving controlled substances, can escalate quickly into consequences that reshape everything. Probation violations, increased sentencing, stricter scrutiny. Judges aren't watching clips, they're reading records, and right now that record is getting heavier. Still, there's a quieter group watching this unfold with a different hope, a turning point. Because sometimes public moments like this become clarity. Sometimes sitting in the back of a patrol car while your father stands outside becomes something you never forget. And sometimes a single sentence, "You took a mugshot," lands harder than anything the internet could ever say. But there's an uncomfortable possibility hanging over everything. If that second custody report within 48 hours turns out to be true, then the situation isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. And if that gets confirmed, the reaction will explode all over again. For now, the industry watches, the fans argue, the family stays mostly silent, and the legal clock keeps ticking. Because this story isn't just about what happened on that road, it's about what happens next. Will this be remembered as the wake-up call, or the moment things spiraled further? And just when it felt like the narrative had settled, reckless son, disappointed father, divided audience, a deeper realization started to take shape. This isn't just about a mugshot, it's about legacy. Because in that moment, sitting in the back of a patrol car in a Pikachu onesie, something symbolic happened. Not just for him, but for everything tied to his name. His father has spoken for years about consequences, about mistakes, about the pull that leads young men toward conflict instead of caution. And now, that same pattern appears to be unfolding in real time. But here's the twist no one expected. Inside the household, the reaction reportedly wasn't loud. It wasn't explosive. It was quiet, the kind of silence that follows impact. Because while the internet debates responsibility and procedure, inside that space, it's something more personal. A father who's lived through the system watching his son step toward it. A brother stepping in publicly to hold the line. And a 21-year-old turning serious moments into something the internet can laugh at. But this is where everything shifts. Because a felony charge, especially one tied to a Schedule II substance, isn't something you meme your way out of. Courts don't care about captions. Judges don't care about viral moments. If there's no prescription, the consequences are real: probation, fines, a permanent record. And if there was another custody incident, that compounds everything. Because courts don't look at personalities, they look at patterns. And that's the part that makes this moment feel like a crossroads. Years ago, T.I. said it plainly: if this continues, it leads somewhere serious. Back then, it sounded like a warning. Now it sounds like a decision point. Because from here, there are only two paths. One, he steps back, absorbs the weight of everything, lets the legal process unfold quietly, and shifts direction. Or two, he doubles down. More defiance, more public moments, more escalation, and the system responds exactly how it always does. That's why this story has gripped so many people. It feels like watching a fork in the road in real time, watching generational patterns try to repeat, and wondering if they'll finally be broken. That moment on the roadside, is there absolutely no way to resolve this, wasn't just about that night. It was about every warning that came before it, every conversation behind closed doors, every attempt to redirect before flashing lights made it public. And now everything is waiting on what comes next: court dates, legal filings, official records, answers. Will the charge stick? Will that second report be confirmed? Will the tone change or stay the same? And maybe the biggest question of all, when T.I. finally speaks, because history says he will, what will he say? Right now, the silence feels like the calm before something bigger. Because this isn't just about a late-night drive. It's about identity. It's about consequence. It's about whether carrying a legendary name becomes motivation or pressure that keeps boiling over. One decision from here could rewrite everything. One mistake could lock in a narrative that's impossible to escape. And that's what makes this moment so heavy. The story isn't over. The legal process is just beginning. The family dynamic is still unresolved. And the next chapter could either be redemption or reality hitting harder than ever before. So now the question shifts to you. Is this just another reckless chapter? Or is this the moment that forces real change? Because right now, two narratives are colliding. One says the pattern won't break. The other says he's young, under pressure, and still figuring it out in public. Where do you stand? Should T.I. speak now, or stay silent and let the legal process play out? And if you were 21, living under constant scrutiny with every mistake turning into headlines, would you handle it perfectly? Think about that, because the next update could change everything. And when it does, this story won't just continue, it will define what comes next.